what she's done. That I know that's what I have done. Other people that I know that have been victimized, that's what they do. People minimize it.
Is that a coping mechanism, a survival mechanism, a combination of things?
I think it's a combination.
I'm not sure what it is, but I just know how prevalent it is that we blame ourselves because we think it's our fault. And so you don't want to report it. You don't want to, initially, at least what I've seen with friends and myself, what I went through, I saw it as my fault. So why report it? And why, I didn't want any trouble, because you shouldn't, as victims shouldn't be shameful, but there's still, you still feel a sense of shame, whether it's, what we see from the outside, that we should feel shameful, but I'm not sure why, but that is something that I see a lot, and so I think it makes you silent for a while until you kind of come to grips with it.
And there's also the issue of underage drinking. So if you're in a position where someone has if you're an underage drinker and someone has supplied you alcohol and then has taken advantage of you, as in Brock Turner's, although I think they were 18 or 19. Still, there was drinking involved, and it's almost as if in our society still, culturally, that if a woman drinks or if she's under the influence of something else, then it's almost like, didn't she kind of ask for it? And didn't she
expect it?
Right.
Yeah.
Some culpability in what happened to her. And I think that with the Me Too movement, I think it's really, it's just forcing this conversation.
But are there any instances of culpability? Like where you lock your car because it's a bad neighborhood. You're taking a precaution. You shouldn't have to take it. But just as, and this is a silly example, and I'm not trying to minimize it, but I went to Key West a while ago, and I was looking quite handsome, and I walked the island, and I got to a point, and I got some remarks.
That's fun.
They were flattering, and I took them, but I immediately turned around 180 degrees and walked back from where the remarks were coming from. I just did an instant turn. I didn't go, oh, shucks, guys, and keep walking in, because I felt like I might have been signing some kind of a contract. But I just think that we have to realize that the world's supposed to be a safe place, but it's a dangerous place.
It is.
And we have to be careful, and everybody deserves to do what they want and not be harmed, but that's just not the world we live in right now.
No, not right now. Hopefully,
someday it will.
It will, but yeah. I mean, right now, no. It's
just I went on while you were talking, and I looked at the map again, and I clicked on some of the dots, and I don't want to downplay it by saying, God, it was depressing. But I look for patterns in everything.
Yeah.
And I at a glance, I was looking and I was saying it's older guy, younger woman,
alcohol.
Older guy, younger woman, alcohol, and lots of long-term things for people who've been together for years. What are going on.
Yeah, with the domestic abuse. Absolutely. I worked with a woman that was with someone for 14 years. He, at one point, threw her out of a window, second floor window. She broke both of her legs, and she took him back. And so this is, and it on average, it takes a victim of domestic abuse 7 times before they're able to leave their abuser. And that's just the average. So it could be 10, could be 12, So that's a really long process. But, to go back to something that we were talking about earlier is you have to remember that it's not, the creepy guy in the bushes that's going to jump you. It's going to be somebody you know. I mean, with a child, it's 90%.
It's got to be almost.
Nobody
else can get that close.
It's right, exactly. It's on our main page on the R.A.D.A.R project. We have statistics up there, and 90% of children know their abuser. That's so scary and stunning for any parent.
Well, we worry about all these things. We worry about terrorists and strangers and everything, and a disturbing amount of violence that happens to people happens, like you're saying, by people they know and they trust, which makes it worse.
Yeah.
It
does.
Because it doesn't matter about locking your doors or this, that you're letting the people in.
Right.
And people have access.
Right.
And that's really what, and I've got no statistics to back it up, but I've seen in cases for missing persons, and I came to this conclusion the other day, and it may be wrong, but I happen to have two cases back to back, and both I feel that domestic violence was a factor. And one woman, believe is deceased, one woman was located. And I think that the difference, sadly, is children, because I think that children put a delay onto that 7 times you're saying or whatever of leaving, and they make people stay longer.
For sure.
And I think without the children, I think the one woman got out right before something terrible was about to happen to her. The other woman lingered because of the children. I think that was the mitigating factor. And I 7 sounds amazing, but I know in the dealings that I've had with people that are victims of domestic violence, before I started, and I got sucked in, and you can't unsee it. It's one of those social things you can't unsee once you see it. But I got sucked into it, and before I got sucked into it, I have no problem saying that my attitude was pretty much, well, why don't you just leave? Just get up and leave. What's the big deal? It's not that easy. No. It really isn't. You're so tied to somebody. And then when you get the people that are doing domestic violence, and I'm speaking, I'm going to talk for men doing it to women, because I think that's still the majority. But when the people that are doing it carefully plan it out so that the other person it's about control. And sure. They carefully plan out so everything's in their names. You don't have to work, honey. Right. I'll take care of everything. And they make them so dependent on them. And isolate it. That's the other thing. That's the other thing. And, I heard somebody say a statistic which isn't being reported. And I don't know the validity of it, but it's just food for thought. It's not, is that domestic violence is higher with same-sex couples.
Oh, it's very high.
And the logic behind that is because you are closer in stature to each other, typically, so you'll go at it harder, and there may be more little fight and longer fights, because it's more of it's different than having a 6'4" guy versus a 5' woman, right. Having 2 5' women fight,
right.
It'll go longer. But it's that's a statistic I haven't heard anybody publicizing too much.
Well, and there you go, and that's the other reason why we wanted to build the map, so that because the LGBT community is, that's the just that problem is not talked about. And one of the first cases that I ever had being an advocate was with a lesbian, and she was beat up by her girlfriend, and she was so brave to try and get help, and she has since left that relationship, and she's doing amazingly well, but it took her a long time to leave, and she said to me, it's so prevalent. But, you know, again, it's women minimizing their what's happening to them. And so...
But men are even worse, because men won't even report it.
I know.
You know?
I know, they won't. And so that's our hope in the anonymity of, you know, because a lot of things are anonymous on the web. But in this space that is the R.A.D.A.R project, that people feel safe enough that they can report a little bit of information.
And it's just kind of a version of writing a letter to somebody that you don't send, that you rip up to vent and to let it out rather than keep it bottling up.
Yeah, we hope that it's cathartic and that it's healing to people, and that and you know, I keep going back to the word empowering, but that's what we want to do. We want people to feel empowered, and our hope is that we want people to work with law enforcement. And if this is your little toe in the pool to see how it feels to report, and then you say, okay, that felt all right. Now I'm going to go report to the police. Even if they tell me that this is historical, there's nothing that they can do about it. The DA's office has heard the whole thing. They're not going to press any charges. At least that person's had the chance to have their story told, and somebody's listened to it. And
do you have the ability to crank out this data and like comma separate it, you know, so that it can be sorted and everything?
Yeah.
We could say every type of this occurrence this year in this zip code, you know, ultimately.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's it can all be broken down.
It's a realtor's nightmare. You know, it's kind of like Yelp for bad behavior.
Maybe. I don't know. You know, it's but we're hoping that it's really helpful for universities, colleges, even businesses. There was a few years ago, I'm sure you remember this. There was a jewelry store, and it was a chain, and it was pretty big. It was in malls and things, and they had a few people reported that they were to move ahead in the company. They had to do sexual favors to move up in the company. And what they found was, when they did an investigation, was that this was from the top down, and top management was doing this. And this is just how this company, it's just how it worked. But if those women had been able to go on the R.A.D.A.R project website and see that other women were reporting at this jewelry store what was happening at different malls throughout the country, or wherever they were, that they were having the same experience, that would have prompted a conversation between those employees, and so it would have held that company accountable. I've worked with women that have been in nursing homes and have been sexually assaulted. If you're going to put your mom in a nursing home, don't you want to know whether or not she's safe? I mean, that doesn't mean that you're not going to, and this is not about targeting. This is about having information so you can make a healthy, safe choice as to where your kids go to school, what's going on in their school. High school kids, middle school kids, they don't report things. But if they can go on to an app and drop a pin, and then while mom is standing in the car line waiting to pick up their child, and they say to their girlfriend, hey, have you seen that there's 3 pins dropped at our school? And it's the same story coming from 3 different students. Maybe they want to go in and talk to the principal and say, hey, have you seen this? And everyone should be, the schools, the businesses, the nursing homes, companies, everybody should be happy, because it makes for a safer environment.
But what I would say, playing devil's advocate, and just to shore it up and make sure safer, is what happens if I decide, if I'm jewelry store B, and I decide, well, that's hurting his business. I'll drop a couple pins in over there too. Because this is what human beings